FilmStruggles is an experience-based podcast where we ask all the questions an early filmmaker would make.
With a new guest every week, from experts to people that are starting just like us.
We cover different topics like motivation, work balance, networking, and so much more.
We discuss what to do, what not to do, and how to turn struggles into action.
I am Claudia.
And I am Gabriel. Welcome to FilmStruggles. The struggle is real. The film industry is a high-pressure cooker, and it takes one little issue to make it explode. On today's episode of FilmStruggles, we're going to be talking about stress and pressure in the film scene and showing that kindness is key.
Our special guest for the week is Asha, a producer with 21 years of experience in various roles in production with a background in business, finance, and event management. Her producing career includes Canada's Next Top Model and the Crazy Eights, and a numerous of independent projects. Asha is an innate people person, and she agreed to sit down with us and share a little bit about her experience so far. Speaking of that you are a people person, I think our first question that we have is, how do you create a team? So for when the time that a project gets tough, that you can push and motivate people to give that extra mile. Like, what are the key elements that you have found in your career that has helped you to build that environment?
So for me, it's always about being real and being having really strong communication skills. And always keeping your team and the people who are around you informed about what needs to happen. Because preparedness, although this is a bit of a cliche, preparedness is key. It really is key. So I try to impart as much information as I can and set people up for success. That's the thing that I try to do the most. Set myself up for success and other people. I think communication is one of the most important things.
Would you also say, like, you really need also like negotiation skills, kind of to make sure, like, I'm going to do this for you so you can do this for the project, or like vice versa?
I'm a little bit different. So in terms of how I go about things by feel. So I don't tend to go with the hard push. I try to empower everybody with the information that I can give them, because the people that I've brought onto a project, I believe in and hope that they can sort of take the information and run with it, because it's such a busy industry that sometimes you just need people to just go, but you can't, and this is a big thing in the industry, you can't just send people off without giving them comfort, the idea that they're safe and secure, and that they're empowered with the information that they have to go. So you have to sort of help them through that in a really short time frame to do those things.
But Asha, how do you do that? Like, I've seen you doing it, I don't know, with the people that you work the closest with. But how do you make that connection with people? Because maybe sometimes you are not maybe within the same department, or there is someone that handles that department and you're not the one. And because I've been on that side, like, maybe feeling that production doesn't care, well, not every time, but sometimes you do feel that way. And sometimes I'm on the other side where, I don't know, like, I'm producing a short film, or like I'm in a position where I can, call the shots. So, and I've been said that, oh, you don't care about us. But I am. So I don't know, how do you make that connection with people?
Well, there's a couple of things. I think that innately I'm a people person, so that helps. It's not a skill I had to acquire. I was somehow born with it. But I think trust is probably one of the most important things in a relationship, work, romantic, whatever. I think that if the people around you trust in the way that you want to do things, that they'll they'll help you 100%.
Mm-hmm.
If they're feeling insecure or not trusting, I think that's when you have some people that might be challenged in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I think trust and just community is really important as well. And that's something that I always try to impart in any project that I do is even though there is a hierarchy in film and in productions, when you're at the helm or a part of the wheel that is production, I think people need to feel like they're all a part of it and that they're empowered to do what they need to do. So it all comes from relationships and people and how people communicate together.
Also, I think leading by example, right? I think that also
Yeah, I
it's a
mean,
way.
leading by example 100% and showing people the way you do things in the hopes that they'll do something in that way or at least that.
And a lot about empathy, right?
Oh, 100%.
To make sure that everyone's on the same page and in the same vibe and frequency.
Yeah, it's not always easy to achieve.
Oh, no. Yeah.
I'm just very curious because I've been working more on the indie in the independent world than in the union one. Like I've just started there. So I don't know, how do you find or how do you deal with people and trying to get them committed to the project? Because I feel a lot of what you're saying right now, it's that you just trust that people would do the same that you're doing. So I don't know if to create this healthy environment, is it different when you work in the indie world or is it different when you are on the union side of the things? I don't know. How do you find that?
The biggest differences that I find are that people will willingly wear many, many hats on an indie production than they will on a union production.
Okay.
So right there, that's a big difference. People will, because they're not restrained by their union, on an indie level, you'll tend to get a little bit more out of people in a genuine, creative way. Whereas when you're on the union side, people are a little bit, there might be a little bit of, well, I don't do that because I don't do that in my regular job. Or they're not as invested in the creative process on a small scale. If you're on, The Flash, if you're on a show like that, you're really at the disposal of the studio and the producer. The non-union side of things allows flexibility and allows the creative process to flow a little more, I think.
Do you think that in this indie universe, it is easier to achieve it is our film mentality in the crew and make sure that everyone is working towards the same goal?
Yes, 100%. And the interesting thing about that is that you'll often get union. I've called upon friends, hey, I'm doing this project. And I get a lot of union people that come, even though they're working, anywhere from 12 to 16 hours a day in their week, they'll still come and help on the weekends.
Find time somehow. Yeah.
Yeah, they want to do it. So the fact that they come through and want to do those things speaks volumes because they can't do it in their day in and day out job. And then they still want to do it. So yeah, it's probably a longer conversation, union versus non-union in terms of people. But I do believe that you can really get some great people on board on an indie film. It's about knowing them and them knowing you and trusting that they'll, oh yeah, she's great. We loved working with her. Well, let's see what happens here.
Yeah, I'm asking it also because I don't know, like talking about commitment. In my experience, I don't know if this is because it was like, I don't know, like independent work or like study short film, like a student short film. It has happened that, I don't know, dealing with people, sometimes it, as you said, that they don't feel, I don't know, like you're taking care of them, or that you are not giving them that comfort or that safety. It's very easy for people just to, I don't know, just being late or don't take care of the equipment, and at the end you would be, I don't know, held responsible because you are the one that it's preventing this this sink. Oh my god, this ship to sink. I'm sorry. So like, because at the end of the day, you need to deliver a show. So with all these people that are not being committed, but that's my experience from the indie world, that it's very easy for them just to live and then just never come back. So I don't know if that ever happened to you. How would you avoid, or how would you uh, have a comeback for that?
Well, it depends on where they are in their process or in their development. So if you get people who are right out of the gate, who don't have a lot of experience, but they're like, yeah, let's do this, and then they realize it's a little harder than they thought, or wasn't quite what they thought, or what they imagined in their mind. I've been fortunate to have people who have a lot of experience who come into projects, but I've also had some people who just, they don't take it seriously. So I always sit down at the beginning, have several group meetings, talk to people and say, just lay out the cards. We're doing this project this weekend or over the course of this month. That means that if you're committed, you can't take on work. But in lieu of that, we're going to give you some education that you may not have had before. You're going to be a camera loader instead of a camera assistant, or you're going to be an assistant location manager instead of being a PA. So I always try to bring out the things that they're going to learn that they can apply to their toolbox as it were, to give them the motivation to come. To come and play. I also always make sure that I have 3 meals covered no matter what.
Okay.
Whether it's me at craft service myself, making sure, or I do the shopping, or whatever that is, I make sure that there are some things that allow them some comforts while they're doing this to make this a really good experience all around.
That's why I asked at the beginning, like, about the negotiation skills, like quote unquote, lots of air quotes in this, because to a degree you have to sit down with the people and say, like, here is the situation. How can we solve this? This is what I can give you. This is what we can provide to this group, to either if it's the crew or the talent or whatever, who it is. But just make sure that, like, if you show up, we have this, and then you can learn something new and improve.
100%.
And for example, Asha, talking about this commitment and everything, when you have a crew member that starts, I don't know, for some reason, it doesn't, I don't know, it's satisfied with everything that you're putting towards, and that you are, and he's gonna be able to learn and do all these things. But that's just one person. But what happens when that person starts to mess around and, start creating this toxic environment? So, for example, there is an episode in Friends, I don't know if you've seen it, where Monica, she's now the head chef of a kitchen, of a restaurant. And she gets to be the chef because she got the head chef fired. And now she's the one in charge, but everyone hates her. Even though she's being nice and she's trying to be friends with everyone, she's just being hated. And she just hired this one other person, Joey, just to hires him only to get him fired and make, I don't know, her point, and just have everyone to start respecting her, and start balancing things out. So, I mean, that's a strategy, but I don't know. How would you deal with the crew member that it's creating this ripple effect upon your crew?
It happens a lot, and it happens anywhere from student films to studio
Yeah.
productions.
Yeah.
It really does, because people are people.
Mm-hmm.
So what I do when I'm at the helm, because it makes a difference if you're, the producer of a smaller project, which I have been, or a second assistant or an assistant coordinator on a big studio show
Mm-hmm.
in the production office. When you're in the production office, you don't really have a lot to say. When you're at the helm, my first thing is just to sit them down and find out what is at the crux of the problem. So sitting someone down and saying, hey, it seems like you're really unhappy doing this project. Can we talk? And
Mm-hmm.
and try not to make it an aggressive conversation, but keep it calm, and try to see, like, is everything okay with you right now? Are you unhappy with what you thought the job was?
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there a reason why you need to spread this information around? So I communication, it always comes back to communication with me.
Mm-hmm.
I like to sit down and talk to someone and say, what's going on? How can we fix this? Sometimes it's fixable and sometimes it's just not. And
Yeah.
you have to find a replacement for that person if they're not going to join as part of this community that's making a
Yeah.
great project.
Yeah, being a team player, right?
And still using the friends example, because I really see what Monica had to do in this episode, kind of like that she was not being seen as an authority or as someone kind of calling the shots in the kitchen. So I'm curious if you ever had to if you ever experienced this, that you have to be respected and people are not respecting for whatever reason that is going on.
Yep. A big yep. It's happened a lot. I don't know if it's, being a woman at the helm or what it is. I'm a kind person, and kindness can sometimes be seen as weakness.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like a lot of people are like, well, I can just come in here and say my thing and take over, or kind of try to bully me into something. And frankly, I don't like to quit a project, but when I feel like there's no other recourse, like people are being bullies because they want things the way what they want them, even though they were hired in the process much later, and I might have put the project together or been a producer for hire. I feel like those people that are that toxic, you need to either step away from them or they need to step away from you.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really think I don't know of another solution, because that type of person is not someone who is really willing to talk it out. They want what they want, and maybe they're, predators in a certain way, like just, so socially or what have you. So yeah, I try to get away from those kinds of environments and people, because there's no good that will come at the end of it. They're not going to listen to reason. If I'm a reasonable person and I've gone through everything that I can go through, I'm not, homie, don't play that.
Yeah. And this actually leads me to the next question. That is, when you start dealing with other people's ego, and I don't know. So it's hard, because that leads to a confrontation, no matter what. Because this person, it's, I don't know, the ego is the size of the room, so it's makes it almost impossible to have this honest conversation and say, okay, let's work it out, not because you like me or I like you, and let's do it for the project. Sometimes it just gets super hard, and you I don't know, you arrive anywhere with this type of people with this huge ego once you encounter someone like that.
Yeah, so ego plays a big part, not only in film, but I mean, it's a part of every human,
Yeah.
right? We all have a healthy ego, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's that ego that's kind of off the charts a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and difficult to deal with. I always take those types of people and pull them aside, and maybe even it's not on set, but it'll be like, hey, let's have dinner or let's go for a
Yeah.
drink and talk. And what I do, because I'm a people person, what comes naturally for me is just to talk, not even
Mm-hmm.
address the issues in the beginning, just to
Yeah.
connect, because there's a lack of connection in that moment. And
Mm-hmm.
for people that are like that, normally, in my experience, the way to deal with it is to have an earnest conversation. And once things
Mm-hmm.
relax a little bit
Mm-hmm.
and their guard is down a little bit, and mine as well, you can have this kind of conversation and say, hey, this is the project that you signed on for. And it comes,
Mm-hmm.
Gabriel, to sort of the negotiating that you talked about in a way, but my negotiation is a little bit maybe different. Um, Once somebody has calmed down, just get in there and have the conversation about, are you here for the good of the project? Is this not the right project for you right now?
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, this is the right project for me right now. Well, so let's figure out a way that'll work with you, because we don't know what someone else is going through
Yeah.
ever.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, okay, I'm really sorry that your dog died last week and I didn't know that. And maybe that's
Mm-hmm.
really causing you some issues. So, what would help in that?
Mm-hmm.
Would it help for you to take a couple of days off and have your first assistant come and help? Or uh, do you think that you can make it through the next 2 weeks, and we'll do our best because we're really a family here? I just try to appeal to the heart.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's a long answer, but
No, that's incredible. I actually I don't know what, like it looks so simple and so I don't know, like common sense, but once you are there, I feel what in my experience, like my emotions they come all like to the top, and it almost makes like I wanna hear, but at the same time I'm so mad or so frustrated that I stop hearing people.
Mm.
Like I just wanna make my point across, and I have never think about stopping and asking, okay, what are you going through? And this is actually a thing that I'm just realizing that. Just-
So, so there's a thing that I read a long time ago that made a real strong impact on me, and it was about sort of it was a psychological study on people, right? And I thought, oh, this is amazing. So this is the first time I've ever kind of shared it. Um, you get up in the morning. Let's say you have a bad night's sleep, and so I'm a perimenopausal woman, right? I have a lot of bad sleeps. I'm hot and cold. My partner says, "Oh my God, I live with a volcano woman." Say you have a really bad night's sleep,
uh-huh.
right? Then you get up and you're sort of feeling discombobulated, and you get ready for work and things aren't really going well because you feel off. And you hop into the car or the bus, however you get to work, walk, and there's a shitty driver, or something happens on the bus or in your walk
Yeah.
that escalates how you're feeling. And then you get to work, and maybe there are some scenarios that you weren't expecting, and that kind of escalates how you're feeling. A lot of things can contribute to any one of us feeling stressed, overwhelmed, any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So, what I try to do is I try to remember, for me first, I'm not quite right. So I'm not going to attack this, or this right now, or engage in this, or this right now, because I don't
Mm-hmm.
feel right about it.
Yeah.
I also put that onto the other person. And I think, okay, maybe this person has also experienced those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, I'm going to try to find a way to not talk about the stressors, but engage in a different way. So I don't
Mm-hmm.
know if that makes sense or not, but
Yeah, no.
No, it makes, yeah.
It makes sense.
It's funny because, like, right now we're having this very calm, not sane, but like our minds and conscious are here and present, so we
Exactly,
know exactly what we're talking about. But once you're on set, which is
Yeah.
like a boiling
Yeah, you're
pan,
rushing. You're rushing.
full of stress and everything, it's really hard to stay with the mind present and like, okay, the right next step is this one. So don't overthink or let your emotions speak through you or for you or anything like that. This is hard. It's a constant exercise.
it is. And one of the things, and I don't do it right now when I need to, but one of the things, when I'm at my most calm kind of baseline, is when I do some meditation and yoga in the morning, even if it's like 15 or 20 minutes, it doesn't matter. Just to like, before you go onto any of your devices, computer, television, radio, any of that stuff, to take a few minutes and ground yourself in the morning. I feel when I have practiced that, it's been a really helpful tool because it helps you to start from a calm place in the day, and I think that informs a good part of the rest of your day. And the boiling pot is really hard and can be hard, so that's where empathy really does come in, because as soon as your ego overreacts into anything like that, and then the other person's ego overreacts, we've all seen it, it doesn't end in a positive way. And at the end of the day, we want a successful outcome. So we have to like dig and find ways to work with people. It's probably one of the hardest things to do is figuring out how to work with an entire crew.
Yeah, and have these win-win situations, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because what you just said is really, really key. Like, everyone who associates themselves to a film, they expect the best out of it, like that is going to perform well later on. So why not make a conscious effort to make sure that this is possible? You know what I mean?
Yeah. And sometimes when we're hiring, when we're doing indie projects, I don't know, we're not desperate, but if someone comes along that kind of fits the bill on paper, that's great. But it's really important to vet those people and interview or have conversations with them before hiring, and have someone with you
To have kind of like a second opinion.
yeah, like, bring someone else on to have that, someone who you really trust, who understand people, to give you that second opinion, because what's on paper is not always who the person is.
Yeah.
Right?
So do you usually do like not exactly a background check, but like ask for people who work with this person before to see their opinions?
I've been very lucky in the product and the projects that I've produced, in that anyone that I've ever worked with, if I call them, they'll come. And if they bring someone on, I trust their opinion.
Okay.
But I have seen in other circumstances where that isn't the case. And yes, 100%. I mean, it's really easy to go on to IMDb, right? And say, if someone says, hey, I was on The Flash or Arrow and did all these things, great, check. But, get a reference if they've done another independent project before. And say, hey, yeah, this sounds like it's really awesome. I noticed on your resume that this project that you did was with so-and-so producer. Do you mind if I have a chat with them? You'll know right then and there if they say yes or no. Who would say no unless it was a bad experience, right? But we also can't mistake a bad experience on either side. So maybe somebody was fired. Why were they fired? It's not always a bad reason. Right. And, or, if they left a project, it may not be for a bad reason. So find that information out. I think the more you can know somebody as a person, what they do is still relevant, but I believe that the people part of it, and I think that's maybe a difference that I have than a lot of other independent producers might have, is that I believe in the people.
Mm-hmm.
And then if their skills kind of come into play where they'll work for the project, then that's a win-win for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I do really believe in building a community, and so I do know that it's important to do that. I've just been kind of
Yeah.
lucky.
No, well, it's lucky because I thought it was only about like taking that leap of faith and then just trust that this person knows how to do their thing. But it's also like do your homework and do your research and see if this person is actually the same that it looks in paper. Because oh my god, it has happened to us that you just hire someone and that someone can get your project to the ground
Either make
because
it or break it.
yeah, because he's not who he claims he like knows
Yeah,
everything, right? That he's saying that he does.
that's right. And there is a thing in the independent world that doesn't happen in the union world, which is everybody wants to upgrade. Well, that does happen in the union world, but it's different in indie land. So some people, because they want so badly to upgrade, that they'll say, if they're on the camera team, I'm a loader, I'm a first assistant, camera assistant, or first AC.
Yeah.
Even though they're not and they haven't done it yet. And it's really important to sort of talk to the second AC, the person who is the second AC, and say, okay, you want to be the loader on this. How much experience do you have?
Mm-hmm.
Have you done this? Maybe we can get a loader in and you can be the second on this show and you can learn from them. So
Yeah.
that's actually another thing. This is why it's great to have sort of the coffee talk. Is everybody wants to upgrade their skills. You want to find the right people who do it in the right way.
Mm-hmm.
So not people who say, yeah, I've done it, but haven't, but the people who say, this is what I want to do. Because then what I'll do is I'll do whatever I can to make sure that the first AC mentors the second
Yeah.
AC.
That
right?
I get there.
When I say build community, like that's another way of doing that. It's making sure that people get what they want out of the position that they're volunteering for or getting a flat rate for, or just a lot less than they would, let's say, on a union show or a studio movie.
No, because it has happened to us.
Yeah.
And it's very frustrating. You're like, oh my god, but that's because we didn't do properly our research. We just limited to having that coffee talk and okay, that's it, and we moved on. So yeah.
Another point too is it's always great to have a mentor producer.
Yeah.
If you don't know what's going on, somebody who's got a little bit of experience, it's always best to, I always say, like, when you play tennis, it's better to play with somebody who has a little more skills than you so you can learn those things.
So get learn.
Yeah, and a mentor producer is a great thing to have as well, because it's an authority figure that might be able to play the heavy a little bit when things are going a bit sideways. But it's also to learn how to do things in a different new way. We all have our ideas of how we do things, but it's always great to grow and stretch and learn.
Especially in this industry where pretty much everyone learns by watching and doing right after, like shadowing someone.
Even going to school, like, you both have gone to film school. It's great, but the practical is very different from the learning.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I mean, I'm 22 years into this industry. I have, tons more to learn still. So it's just, it never ends. You can't ever be complacent or comfortable when it comes to shooting projects and people's safety and the well-being of the project and where it's going to go once it's done. All of that stuff requires some good thought and good people around you. I'll end on a very interesting little story that happened to me. It's just quick. I was working as an assistant to a star of a show, but I worked very closely with the production at that time. And the star had never, he came from a different background, not acting necessarily. And so it was his first show and he was the star. And one day in the middle of, something, can you go grab me some ice cream? Yeah. And make sure there's some cherries on top. I'm like, okay. Go to craft services, get some ice cream, make sure there's cherries on top. I got screamed at because I asked for maraschino cherries. These are not maraschino cherries. How could you do that? Screaming in front of the entire crew. And this is like, I don't know, 120 people.
Wow.
Right. And so I didn't say anything. I just walked away. I left the ice cream there. One of the guest stars of the show came to me and said, I can't believe that just happened to you. Don't be discouraged. Know that this type of thing doesn't always happen. And that was a big thing for me because I thought I don't like you very much and I don't want anything to do with you. And as a result, 22 years later, we're really good friends because we were able to talk about it. And he expressed to me what happened and what he was going through during that show and apologized and said, I know it's not right. So there are good things that can happen out of crappy situations, but that was one that just came to mind when we talk about ego.
That's crazy.
It was a big opportunity at the time, so I didn't want to, and it was the first time I'd been treated like that, so I kind of went with it and tried to learn how to deal with that in the future.
When it happens for the first time, you freeze. At least when I got yelled at on a set for the first time, I just stopped. I was like, no reaction. I had no idea what to do. I was like, this never happened to me before.
Yeah.
Where do I go? Who do I talk to? What?
And everybody's kind of staring at you.
Yes, and that's the worst part because you can feel the eyes looking at you and waiting for a reaction, and you cannot actually give a proper reaction because a lot of things are involved.
Not the reaction that you'd like to.
Yeah, not the one that you would like to. Yeah. No, yeah, it's so funny because Claudia is way shorter than me, and I'm the one freezing when things get risky like this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah. Try to be as zen as you can in production because at the end of the day, if you're at the helm, you are at the helm. So you have to set the example. You have to show people how it's done, even though it's hard.
So we are actually almost done. Our time is
Oh
pretty
my,
much up. Uh,
so fast.
we just have one last question, which is usually the same thing that we ask to every guest. Because of the name of the podcast is Film Struggles, we are very curious to know if you have any biggest struggle that you're facing in your career, like as a filmmaker.
As a filmmaker, because I've worn so many hats, the biggest struggle for me as a producer was, so I've produced about 25 small to medium-sized projects, nothing huge, and nothing that I've actually ever sought funding for. I've always had people I've been lucky or because of the relationships that I've nurtured, have people come on. So I haven't had to do that. And I have friends, vendors, and to help with equipment and all of that stuff. But I would say for me as a producer, the biggest struggle was jumping from sort of doing the smaller projects into getting into the funded side. Because once you get there, it's a whole different ball game. And it's just getting the funding and then
Dealing with money.
dealing with the money and all that stuff, but getting the funding, especially here in BC where we are right now, we get a smaller portion of the pie because the East Coast gets a lot of the money, let's say from telefilm, for example. So not being a name that was recognizable in the system and not being able to get funding in that way, I would strongly recommend to bring on somebody who knows how to do grant writing, or who knows how to do proposal writing, or who knows how to go after the money that you require if you're not willing to do it yourself or can't do it. I mean, we all have certain skills, right? I'm more of a people person. That's my innate skill.
Yeah.
It's not going after the money, right? So if I was going to go to the next level, that would be the next thing that I would do. So I think getting the money to do projects, because you can't just do short films forever. It's not going to get you anywhere. You can do a few and as many as you want if that's something that really appeals to you, but that's not going to help you get the projects and get the funding for the projects. So getting out
especially
there,
on the long run, right?
Totally. Yeah. So getting out there and either knowing what your weaknesses are is a real benefit. So knowing yourself is a benefit. So you can't do those things, surround yourself with the people that will help you in the things that you may not know.
Yeah. Going back to the tennis example. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Asha, thank you so much. Oh my
Thank
God.
you very much.
Seriously, I learned something every day that we talk, which is not very often, but we have to do this more often.
Well, I really think that what you're doing is a fantastic thing, and opening up the dialogue. Somebody may see this and say, oh, I work in the props department and I kind of always wanted to do a project. It might inspire them to understand how to do it.
Yeah. Asha, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you. You both also. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
You're
Bye.
welcome. See ya.
Bye.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to give us a review and share this with someone you think might need it.
Also, share with us your favorite quote.
You can find more information about the podcast and our guests on the website FilmStruggles.com.
Remember to follow us at FilmStruggles on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook.
Thank you for listening.
See you next week with a new guest
and a brand new struggle.
FilmStruggles is hosted, produced, and edited by Claudia Hernandez Barragan and Gabriel Sousa Nunes.
Executive producer is Gerson Carranza and sound design by Sebastian Sagastumi.